Hello, everybody. It's time again for another Saturday briefing. And this is the briefing for August the 1st. Had a great July. We all got through it. I have a little saying when I call people sometime, just calling to see if you're still amongst the living. I usually have always meant that metaphorically, but lately, unfortunately, I almost mean it literally. But it seems like everybody's doing well here in the great NCR, and hopefully your family and friends outside of the region are doing well also. But anyway, let me bring you up to date on life here for us and all of our friends and supporters, and through prayer and even contributions. All of you that care about us, you can tune in as well. I post this on my blog. But it goes out first to our pastors and also in our ministers. Let me give you a quick update here today on what's happening. We got some birthdays coming up the next week. So actually today, August the 1st, Mike Seiler has a birthday. Mike Seiler, one of our ministers out of the Beulah Church, and has really been a blessing to me personally and to the region, serving as an interim during the pastoral transition. So happy birthday, Brother Mike. And then Reese Hamer, God bless you, Brother Reese, our prayer commissioner and a chaplain there in Montana. Happy birthday to you. Came through some major heart issues and heart surgery this year, so I'm just thankful that we've got you to celebrate a birthday with on August the 5th. And so I pray that God will continue your recovery. You are doing well, and just pray that you'll continue to recover. And then on August the 8th, Hayward DeHaven, his friends call him Woody. And Brother Woody is a retired minister from California, and he moved to the Billings, Montana area and works there with Brother Mike Dana. And just a precious man of God. And I have really grown to love and respect him. So happy birthday, Brother Woody. Pray that you have a great day on August the 8th. As far as the calendar, the basic things I've been talking to you about for the month of August. Youth camp begins on Monday, and it's all systems go. We've been monitoring it daily and carefully. Our regional youth director, Brother Chris Androvich, has been in touch with the Crystal Springs camp. They've been running camps all summer long. I've had no COVID-19 incidences among the campers or the staff, and so they're very optimistic. We have gone over our own policy and procedures and how we're going to conduct camp with a fine-tooth comb. And so we feel good about it. I do covet your prayers. Let's pray for our students and our children and of course for the staff, that God will continue that good string that Crystal Springs, which they're good God-fearing people. And so that God will honor us as we're trying to minister and serve to our young people. So keep us in prayer, but I'm looking forward to a great week, and hopefully next Saturday I can give you a good report. August the 13th, I have included with, it'll be an attachment, the document that I'm speaking to you from. I will include it to you, and it's got the meeting ID number and the passcode. So our regional prayer call will be on August the 13th, 7:30 Central Time. So got that information. If you'll help me get the word out, I'd be very appreciative to you. And then we'll have a lead pastor's Zoom call on August the 25th, and I'll continue to keep you updated, and I'll get a password and all that out to you pretty soon. So that's just a quick synopsis of what's going on out of the regional office. And so now let me just talk to you as a pastor of pastors. I try to do this each time. This is really the main reason that I share with you. So I got a couple things. I want to talk about post-COVID, and then I want to talk about you right in the middle of all this pandemic and all this going on, and the social unrest and everything else, just the keeping life together. And so let me talk to you about those two things. First of all, post-COVID-19. I've been thinking a lot about this, and there's one thing that we're all going to have as church leaders, we're going to have to come to terms with. I am guessing. Everything I'm hearing and reading and studying, people have learned that they can survive without going to church. They get good church at home, and they kind of enjoy sitting at home in their pajamas or sweatpants and eating chips and watching church at home, and they're getting more and more used to that. And we've done good here in our region, I think far better than what I'm hearing in other parts of the country. Many of the churches, not only in our denomination, but just church-wide, the attendance is drastically off. And a lot of that it's not because of older people or at-risk people that say, I'm going to wait a little longer. It's just people are not coming back. And we can let that be like a knife in our heart, and we can panic, or we can settle down and put our thinking caps on and say, God, what do we need to do? It's like when you're walking in a room and there's been a change and you were not aware of it, and you stump your toe or you bump into something. You have to pivot. You have to move. Or you're driving down the road and everything's going real good, but then all of a sudden somebody comes flying up behind you and then goes around you, or you come up on a big truck, or a deer comes out in front of you. You have to pivot. You have to make an adjustment. We're going to have to make an adjustment. We're going to have to take another look. And so what do we do about church attendance? And I think the first of all is that the church hasn't gone anywhere. The church is still the salt of the world, the light of the world. The church is still there. And so we must not allow ourselves to get trapped that a church is strictly in a building. That it's never been the case. And it's kind of like back in the day when the manufacturers of horse and buggies, or not the horses, but the buggies, if they within less than a few short years, they were all out of business. And the reason why is they thought they were in the building buggy business instead of being in the transportation business, and they didn't adapt. And so we will have to adapt. I am convinced of this as we look forward. I think this is a 9/11 kind of event, a D-Day kind of a bombing Pearl Harbor kind of event. Our world will never be the same again. And so let's think about it. First of all, church attendance, just our whole mindset of church attendance. If you think back, the citizens of the theocracy of Israel under God, he set it up where they didn't go to church every week. They didn't go to church every day. They didn't go to church 2 or 3 times a week. They went about 2 times every 2 months. They went only a few times a year because they had busy lives. They were farmers. They had to stay there and tend their crops. They were a long way from the church. And so in the theocracy of Israel, they went to church on the average about once every 2 months. And then the Jerusalem church, after the day of Pentecost, they met every day. They met daily. They were right there in a city. They were right there at the temple. It was convenient. They went and met every day. They met from house to house in the evening. They had church during the day, church at night. I mean, they were ramped up to go to church. Then the Gentile church, as the church began to spread out across the Roman Empire, different cultures, different situations, different lifestyles. So the church they began to settle on Sunday. And it wasn't a day devoted to church. They would get up early because it was the morning of the resurrection. So they had remember, I don't hear a lot about it now, but I used to have them, sunrise services on Easter Sunday morning, and you get up and have a service maybe at a graveyard or something. I don't know, I haven't heard of anybody saying that around here, but anyway, they would meet early on their way to work. It was a sacrifice. They had to work it in, but they met once a week, and they kind of settled on Sunday morning. And that's we've adapted to that. But anyway, wherever you land, our people will land somewhere in there. And even today, we've seen the trend, and this COVID-19 pandemic has just sped it up. But the trend for several years now, used to church members, they went on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and they went Wednesday night, and sometimes Tuesday night for youth, and then all kinds so they were there almost every time the church doors were open, and they were open a lot. And then a regular church attender, we got to the point where every Sunday morning, I remember when people planned their schedules, they would leave after church on Sunday to go on vacation and be back on Saturday night so they could be back in church. But then church attendance, or regular attendance, became maybe 2 or 3 times a month, and then twice a month, and then once a month. And so we're all over the map, and we're going to probably stay all over the map on what church attendance is. I do think it's safe to say that church attendance matters. We've got to teach our people that. Wherever they land, we've got to teach them that God's people have always assembled together. And so church attendance, being in a building, does matter. And in Hebrews 10, 24, 25, one of the classic proof texts of this, even we should assemble even more often as we see the day, the judgment day, the end of time, as we see that appearing, as that approaching. And it sure seems like it's approaching right now, but that's a topic for another day. So what do we do? What do we do about church attendance? I don't have the time today to drill down real deep on this, but let me talk to you about it. I think we've got to answer the question, what can my people, what can anybody get at my building that they can't get at home? And when I say my building, your church, the church that's under your stewardship, under your watch. But what can people get at church that they can't get at home, that they can't get in their camper or in their car, RV, driving down the road, traveling somewhere, and they'll just tune in? What can they get there that they can't get outside of the church? And that deserves a lot of attention, and we must answer that question. We've been needing to answer that question for several years. The pandemic has just sped it up. Church attendance has been challenged. To run 100 now, you have to about run 300 because they're only going to be there once or twice a month. We've known this. Now, to run 100, we're going to have to run 400 or 500 probably. Our culture is shifting. And so what does that mean? Well, I think just a few things to think about. I'm going to give you 2, and then I'm going to give you a good resource. And it'll be in your notes. And so the first one is go back and study for yourself in the Pentateuch in particular, all this separation between the holy and the ordinary, or the profane. Profane now has become kind of like we associate it with profanity. But it was the common, it was the everyday thing. And then there was the holy thing that was separated unto the Lord. And the sacred has been pushed out of our culture, out of our society. There has been a relentless pressure, a relentless drive to the separation of church and state. And so we have pretty much pushed the sacred out of our culture, especially the Christian sacred. But there's one place that is there that people can experience the holy, and that is at the house of God, the church, the building. So the church is really got to be different than any other place. And it can't be a stale, dry, musty place, but it's got to pop. It's got to be so different. We've taken the mystery out of church. We've made it so common that it's no longer mysterious. It's no longer sacred. It's no longer special. And so take another look at your building, at that holy ground, and teach your people the difference between the holy and the profane. That's the Bible is full of this. And so that's something to think about. Then another thing that you can only do at the house of God that you can't do at other places. And that is the rituals and the sacraments. We have worked so hard to not become ritualistic because of the abuses that we've taken the ritual out of the church. And as the rituals have gone out of the church, the sacredness has, the mystery has. Man, back in the day when you went to church, you brought an animal with you, and you cut its throat and helped and bled the blood over into a sacred basin, and then the priest took it from there and helped you to offer your sacrifice. Now we have made church a place where the implication is you go to church and you sit there and you behave yourself. We start drilling that into them even as children. And so church is a passive activity. and we've taken out the sacred, we've taken out the rituals, the sacraments. We've made sacraments so common that, just, get some juice or water out of the refrigerator and get some crackers and just serve yourself communion. And there is a place for that. But it should be done with such excellence and such intentionality and such teaching. We've got to create rituals for our people, things that they do. And I could do a whole lesson on that. I had to learn this myself as a pastor. And so those are some things to think about. Go back and the things that you can offer at your building is a sacred experience, a holy experience, mystery, reverence. And that doesn't have to necessarily mean being quiet, but it should be. The quietness and reflection could be a part of it, or even should be a part of it. But every house will look a little different. But the sacred versus the profane, the common, creating rituals and sacraments out of the Bible and the precedent of the Bible, but adapting them to our time. Don't be afraid to have ritual to get your people involved. And then I am including an excellent podcast here, Norna Jones on the best and worst practices of social media, why online ministry is about more than streaming content and where social media is going in the next few years. And it's from a Carey Nieuwhof podcast. I like Carey Nieuwhof, and so there's a link. All you have to do is cut and paste it and put it into your web browser, and it'll take you right there. It's only about 41 minutes, and it's an excellent podcast. So there's your resource. So anyway, post-COVID, what are we going to do about our buildings, our church attendance? There's some things to think about, and I'll send these notes to you. But now let's talk about you for just a moment, because my goal is to keep you healthy, to live a sustainable life that brings you joy. And Jesus said, my burden is light and my yoke is easy. There's work involved. There's a burden to pull. But when you're doing it at the pace of Jesus, it should be fulfilling. It should even be fun. It should add purpose and meaning to your life. And so let me walk you through a couple things. The first thing is I'm going to use an IT word or a computer word, but be intentional about defragging your life. Now, what do I mean about that? Now, most of the new modern operating systems, they take care of all these things for you. But there was a time that you would have to defrag your computer. And you'd have to stop everything and let your computer, it would reorganize. The information was all over the hard drive. And it would have to defrag it because your computer would get slower and slower and slower. All this information when it's trying to process, it would have to go all over the place trying to grab a little bit of data here and a little bit of data there and here and there. And so you would defrag your computer every so often so that it would operate more smoothly. Well, we must do that too. We've got to defrag our life, our brain, our mind. Do you know that most of the history of mankind moved at the speed of 3 miles an hour? That's the average pace of walking. And it gave you time to defrag, to process, to think, to really talk to each other, to have moments of silence and quiet as you went at a walking pace. And I want to encourage you to slow down. Let there be times that you unplug, that you do not look at your phone, that you turn it off, that you just defrag. And so under that, here's some ways to do that. Protect your sleep. Get enough sleep. People went to bed. There was a time when people had to go to bed at night. When it got dark, you went to bed. You just went to bed. You didn't stay up. And because God created us to get our rest. There's things that happen. Your brain defrags while you're sleeping. You cannot be healthy. You cannot think healthily if you do not get your rest. Protect your sleep. Protect your thinking. Make time daily to do nothing but think. To just get somewhere and be silent. Be still and know that He is God. I was listening to a podcast just a few days ago where Warren Buffett, he'll spend 90 minutes a day just looking out the window. He's one of the richest men in the world, very successful in finance. You may have heard it, may have or may not have heard of him. But I thought about that. What an amazing thing. I remember a number of years ago, back when Dr. Culpepper, Raymond Culpepper, was general overseer at the time. And I was at Fort Mill. I'd hit a wall. And anytime I hit a wall, I seek out people that have done what I want to do, what I need to do and I can't do. You have to have coaches. And so I called him, made an appointment. I had to be in Cleveland for another meeting. And so he was kind and gracious enough to meet with me. And I was just sitting there and talking to him, how do I do this? And he was walking me through some things. I knew Dr. Culpepper from other situations in our life. And so it was a very cordial conversation. And so then he stopped. He said, David, you got to be careful about getting so busy. He says, you know what I miss? This busy life of being general overseer. You know what I miss? Those times when I would just put my Bible in my lap and I'd sit in a little rocker and I'd look out the window. And honestly, his eyes teared up. He says, I miss looking out the window. And brothers and sisters, I've never forgotten that. And you've got to make time to just look out the window, to do nothing, to let your mind just process and rest and relax. That will be some of your most creative times. Then search out learning opportunities. Feed your mind. Don't let your life be about building from one sermon to the next sermon, preparing for one meeting to the next meeting. There's got to be times where you just learn for the joy of learning, growing. Maybe it's a podcast, reading books, but make time. What about you? How can you defrag your life and so it's not so complicated? Make sure you're learning. Feed your mind. Then something that I do, and I have really, during this COVID, I've really become more intentional, and that is seek out beauty. A man and a cat can both look at a king, but the cat will never see a king. Only the man can see a king, because we have the image of the Creator in us. We understand beauty, aesthetics, position, all of the things, the nuances about life. A cat, most animals, they see, if I understand it right, they just see almost in black and white or gray. They don't appreciate beauty the way you and I do. When you search out beauty, and I encourage you to search outside more than inside. Do you know that we now live, reliable statistics, World Health Organization, others tell us that in the Western world in particular, Europe and the United States, Canada, we spend almost over 90% of our life indoors. We live in a sheetrock plastic world, and we don't get outside and see, and a lot of the beauty that we do see, we're not even conscious of it, and it's man-made. But go right straight to the Creator and search out beauty. That feeds your soul. And then, this may be a little odd, but throw something away every day. Try to throw something away every day. Simplify your life. Maybe it's one of those 55 t-shirts that you've got, 12 dozen shoes, something out in the garage, but simplify your life. There's just something therapeutic about I'm going to let that go. Because everything you own, more and more, all this stuff we're accumulating, then we have to guard it. Then we have to insure it. Then we have to take care of it. Then it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier, and it's draining us, and we don't even realize it. Throw something away every day. Then, number 7, stay connected. Stay connected to God every day. Your personal time with God, it's become more and more meaningful for me during this time. I can't not do it. And so I encourage you, stay connected to God. And then this is my last thing, and I'll leave you alone. But then daily, have a priority, have a game plan for your day. Here's just and this will be in your notes, but here's a working list for a game plan. Whatever's eating away at you, it's eating away at you. It's robbing you of your energy, your attention, your passion. And so deal with those things that must absolutely, without a doubt, must be done today. Whatever's eating away at you, it's got to be done today. Well, get her done. Get that off your shoulders. out of your mind. Get it resolved. Get it done. Then number 2, deal with the top 2 or 3 things that must be pushed forward. If I don't make improvement on this, if I don't push this forward a little bit, it's going to sink the ship. Okay, now that's the important thing, sink the ship. There's a lot of things that we think is important and they're urgent and we'll just feel better. It's about making ourselves feel better. But what are the things that if I don't get this done, it will sink the ship? Do you know there'll be days that there's nothing that has to be done? Your ship is not going to sink every day. There's things that need to be done, would be good to be done. It's worth planning ahead. But if it's not going to sink the ship in the next couple of days, then don't let it drive your life. But those things that will sink the ship. For instance, Sunday, if you're not prepared for Sunday, you can't go too many Sundays and not be prepared. And so every day you probably want to take a look at things like that and move it forward. It doesn't have to be resolved today, but you move it forward. And so deal with the urgent, it has to be done today things. Number 2, deal with the top 2 or 3 things that if I don't do this, it's going to sink the ship in the next day or 2. And then number 3, make time daily for intentional contacts. Everything revolves about and around relationships. Reach out to people. Pick up the phone. Drop a meaningful text. All right, write an occasional letter or a card, but go out of your way to make 5 or 6 intentional contacts every day. And then number 4, have a set time to quit. And after that, you quit. You don't answer your phone. You put it down, turn it off, whatever you need to do, and you enjoy your life, enjoy your family. And then number 5, you deal with everything else if you have any time left over. Okay? Don't let your work run you, run your work. Well, there you go, guys and gals. I love you. I count it an honor to be on the great NCR team. I've gone a little longer today than I normally like to, but hopefully some of this will help you to run to win. God bless you. I'm rooting for you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.